Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome. This is Shabbat Shuvah, the Sabbath of return, the Sabbath between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And we're happy to have you with us for our Friday night service. We're going to begin with the beautiful Sabbath melody, Yedid Nefesh, which you'll find in your prayer books, middle of page 128. My heart's delight, source of mercy, draw your servant into your arms. So let's sing together another beautiful tune, Lechilach, from the words of Genesis. We're in our Sidurim, in our prayer books, page 645, top of the page on 645. We turn now to the blessing over the Shabbat candles, and we'll read the first meditation. You'll find it on 121, top of page 121, and then we'll sing together the blessing over the Shabbat candles. Page 121. As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we by our lives give light to all who behold us, as their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light. So may we in our own day be among those who kindle light. Let's sing together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. So we're reading together page 125. Where has this week vanished? Is it lost forever? Will I ever recover anything from it? The joy of life, the unexpected victory, the realized hope, the task accomplished? Will I ever be able to banish the memory of pain, the sting of defeat, the heaviness of boredom? On this day, let me keep for a while what must drift away. On this day, let me be free of the burdens that must return. On this day, Shabbat, abide. Help me to withdraw for a while from the flight of time, contain the retreat of the hours and days from the grasp of frantic life. Let me learn to pause, if only for this day. Let me find peace on this day. Let me enter into a quiet world this day. On this day, Shabbat, abide. Let's read also towards the bottom of 127. We offer thanks, O God, for the Shabbat which unites us in faith and hope, for Shabbat holiness which inspires sacred living, for Shabbat memories glowing even in darkness, for Shabbat peace born of friendship and love. We offer thanks and blessing, O God. So let's turn to the Sabbath Psalms. We're on 130, and we always begin with Psalm 95. L'chu Naranana on page 130. Let us sing joyously to Adonai, raise a shout for a rock and deliverer. Let us come into God's presence with praise. Let us raise a shout for God in song. For Adonai is a great God, the great ruler of all divine beings. In God's hand are the depths of the earth. The peaks of the mountains are God's. God's is the sea, God made it, and the land which God's hands fashioned. Come, let us bow down and kneel, bend the knee before Adonai, our Maker. For Adonai is our God, and we are the people God tends, the flock in God's care. Oh, if you would but heed God's charge this day. So let's turn the page and continue with the Psalms on 132. These are excerpts from Psalm 96. Sing to Adonai a new song. Sing to Adonai all the earth. Sing to Adonai, bless God's name. Proclaim God's victory day after day. Tell of God's glory among the nations, God's wondrous deeds among all peoples. For Adonai is great and much acclaimed. God is held in awe by all divine beings. All the gods of the peoples are mere idols, but Adonai made the heavens. Glory and majesty are before God. Strength and splendor are in God's temple. Let the heavens rejoice and the earth exult. Let the sea and all within it thunder. The fields and everything in them exult. Then shall all the trees of the forest shout for joy at the presence of Adonai, for God is coming. For God is coming to rule the earth. God will rule the world justly and its peoples in faithfulness. read together from Psalm 29, the last few verses on page 137. 137. The voice of Adonai kindles flames of fire. The voice of Adonai convulses the wilderness. Adonai convulses the wilderness of Kadesh. The voice of Adonai causes hinds to calve and strips forests bare. While in God's temple all say, Glory. Adonai sat enthroned at the flood. Adonai sits enthroned, sovereign forever. May Adonai grant strength to God's people. May Adonai bestow on God's people well-being. So we come to the beautiful Shabbat melody, Lela Dawkins. We're on 138, and we're singing together verses 1, 2, and verse 9. The last verse, if you're able at home, stand up and sing it with us. We begin with Lela Dawkins Likrat Kala. Lela Dawkins Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat Mekabela. Lela Dawkins Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat Mekabela. Lela Dawkins, Lela Dawkins Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat Mekabela. Lela Dawkins Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat Mekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, ish v'yanu elam yuchad, Adonai echad, v'shemo echad, v'shem oferet v'yitlah. Lela Dawkins, Lela Dawkins Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat Mekabela. Lela Dawkins Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat Mekabela. Likrat Shabbat Mekuvenecha, Ki mikol habrasa, Zerosh Zekeret Zesucha, Kol Ma'aseh B'matvat Tefillah. Lela Dawkins, Lela Dawkins Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat Mekabela. Lela Dawkins Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat Mekabela. Bo'ii b'shalom b'teret mala, Gam b'simcha u'b'tzahara, Bochem u'te'am sekula, Bo'ii chala, Bo'ii chala. Lela Dawkins, Lela Dawkins Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat Mekabela. Lela Dawkins Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat Mekabela. So turn with me a few pages. We come to the Chatzi Kaddish, the half Kaddish, which marks the end of the reading and singing of the Psalms and the beginning of the essential blessings of the Shabbat service. We're on 144, top of page 144, and we'll all sing together a cappella the Chatzi Kaddish. Yitgadal, Yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah, V'yamad Yibrach Yirutei, V'yamlich Malchutei, V'chayecho, U'vyomecho, U'chayedecho Beis Yisrael. V'agalam, V'agalam, U'vizman Kariv, V'yimeru, Amen. Yesh me Rabba Mevorach, Le'olam B'yiradav, b'yitaleh, b'yitalau, Shemei Kedusha B'richu, Lela Mikol Birchata, Shirata, Tushvechata V'nechemata, Damiram B'yama, B'meru, Amen. Let's lift up our voices for the Baruch Hu. We're on 146. The call to worship together. Baruch Hu et Adonai Havorach. Baruch Adonai Havorach Leolam Vaed. We read together the first blessing in the middle of 148. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness, and darkness from light, transforming day into night, and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzebaot is your name. The living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on the evening. Baruch atah Adonai, Amariv Arabim. The second blessing, the blessing of love, page 150. On 150 in the middle of the page. Everlasting love you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Together we sing the Shema Yisrael. The words are on 152. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod, Malchuto, Leolam Vaed. Let's all be seated if you're comfortable at home. We'll continue with the words from Deuteronomy, the beginning of the V'ahavta paragraphs, page 154. On 154. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele Asher Anochi Mitzavcha Hayom Al Levavecha Vishinantam Levanecha V'dibarta Bam V'shivtecha B'veitecha U'Velechtecha V'aderech U'V'shachbecha U'Kumecha U'Kshartam Le'ot Al Yadecha V'ayu L'totafot Be'enenecha U'Ktavtam Al Mezuzot Beitecha U'Visharecha L'man tizkaru, v'asitem et kol mitzvotai, v'item kiroshim le'Elohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeti etchem, me'eretz Mitzrayim, liyod lachem le'Elohim, ani Adonai Elohechem. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day. Impress them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hand. Let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Thus you shall remember to observe all my commandments and to be holy to your God. I am Adonai your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai, your God. Adonai Elohechem Emet. So we turn to the words of Mi Chamocha from the book of Exodus 15. The words for our beautiful song for this melody were on 158, page 158.
Oh, sorry.
Mi Chamocha B'li Madonna, Mi Chamocha B'Dam HaKodesh, Nora Tehillah Oseh V'Leh, Nora Tehillah Oseh V'Leh, Malchutecha Ra'u Banecha, Ayom Livnei Moshe Miriam, Zeli Anu V'Yamru, Adonai Imloch, Adonai Imloch, Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. Praised are you, Adonai, for redeeming all of Israel. So we turn now to the Hashkivenu, and we have a beautiful flute duet with Wendy and Alma. The words are on 160. We'll continue with more music. If you'll remember the traditional Vishamru melody that we sing, we're on 162, the words of Vishamru from the book of Exodus, reminding us to guard and protect the Sabbath. The words are on top of page 162. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ומתורם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת השמיים ואת הארץ ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם לבית העולם. So let's turn now to the tefillah, the 7 basic blessings of the Sabbath evening service. You're with us on 164. We begin with a famous verse from the Psalms. And if you're able, please stand up and join us. We'll sing together the first blessing on 166, and we'll continue chanting on 168. Adonai sefatatita uviagiti latecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Leah v'Leah, Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor Banoran, Eloyom, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Godei Yaakov, V'Zomer Chasei Avot Imahot, V'Geulah Yirvei B'neihem, Leman Shemo V'Ahava, Melech Ozer Moshiach Umay, Baruch atah Adonai, Marid Abraham, Yezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayei HaKol Atah Rav Le'Hoshia, Mechalkel Chayim B'Chesed, Mechayei HaKol B'Rachamim Davim, Tzomech Noflim B'Rovech Olim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayeh Emunato, Vishenei Ava, Nichamo Chaval Geburot, Umidom Melach, Melech Meni, Umechayeh, Umatzmiya Yeshua, V'ne'emanata l'chayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol. Let's read together, top of 171, on page 171. The days pass and the years vanish, and we walk sightless among miracles. God, fill our eyes with seeing and our minds with knowing. Let there be moments when your presence, like lightning, illumines the darkness in which we walk. Help us to see wherever we gaze that the bush burns unconsumed, and we, clay touched by God, will reach out for holiness and exclaim in wonder, how filled with awe is this place, and we did not know it. Blessed is the Eternal One, the Holy God. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. Let's all be seated, please. We'll continue with the beautiful words of the Ritzeh, this blessing, asking God to shine the light of the holy presence upon the land of Israel and the people of Israel, all of the Jewish people. The words are on page 174 in our Siddur, 174 in the prayer book. Find favor, Adonai, our God, with your people Israel, and accept their prayer and love. May the worship of your people Israel always be acceptable. God, who is near to all who call, turn lovingly to your servants. Pour out your Spirit upon us. Towards the bottom of the page. Let our eyes behold your loving return to Zion. Blessed are you, Adonai, whose presence returns to Zion. Baruch atah Adonai, hamachazir shechinato l'tzion. The blessing of Thanksgiving. We're on 177, top of the page. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth which day by day sustains us, and for all these and more we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha, u'lecha na'eh lehodot. Our final blessing, as you all know, is Shalom Rav, the blessing of peace. We're on page 178. Excuse me, page 178. Let's take some minutes to reflect and offer our own prayers, our own meditations to the Almighty. So this is a very special Sabbath because it is, as I mentioned, in the midst of the High Holy Days, and it's sometimes referred to as these 10 days of repentance or return are called Aseret Yemei Teshuvah, the days when we turn ourselves back towards God. We lift up our eyes and ears and listen to the voice of Adonai. And it's called Shuvah also because the Haftorah is taken from a famous series of verses in the book of Hosea. Hosea, who was a prophet who lived in the middle of the 700s BCE, wrote these words, "Return, O Israel, to the Lord your God." It's a metaphor for his return unto his own wife and to his own marriage. And thus the theme of turning oneself around to one's higher self is essential to this entire Sabbath day. But I want to talk about the Torah portion. I wanted you to know why the Shabbat is special. Every Shabbat is special. The Torah portion comes out to be Ha'azinu, almost the last chapter, not quite the last chapter in the book of Deuteronomy, one of the most exquisite poems ever written in any language. The poet invokes the faithful reliability of the divine and reminds us of our relationship with God. And it begins with these words, "Give ear, O heavens, let me speak. Let the earth hear the words I utter. May my discourse come down as the rain, my speech distill as the dew." So this was Moses' third great poem, the last one he will utter to the Jewish people. And in it, he's reciting the whole panoply of Jewish history, starting with our enslavement in Egypt, and then God's extraordinary love, which brought us out, which liberated us from the land of Egypt and brought us ultimately to the land of Canaan. The poem also contains a warning to all Jews to remember not only the covenant, but remember to avoid the distractions and the blandishments of idolatry and all that idolatry implies. So isn't it kind of amazing that the summation of the 5 books of Torah is written in poetic style? Why wouldn't it be written in simple prose form like all the other chapters in the 5 books? We might say that when God was looking towards the Jewish people, he or she needed an intense style to communicate the passion and the urgency, the listening to God's instructions to all of the people. It's not simply a statement, it's a vision. It's a visionary statement. And by the way, the word for poem in Hebrew means both a song and a vision. So there's reason for this magnificent chapter being written in poetic form. We might also say that poetry recognizes that every word is essential, every word is special, every word adds richness and context to a story. A tremendous amount of imagery is involved in creating a great poem, and that beauty, that imagery, necessitates very precise words, which we find in this chapter. So we might say also that poetry is writing refined to its very essence. It is a part of God's gift to us. It's not just the words of Moses, it's really the words of Adonai spoken through Moses' voice. There's one other aspect of poetry that I think is important for us to remember, which is that the most essential, the most crucial message of the poem is not the most overt. In other words, I'll give you a more down-to-earth example. When Robert Burns, one of the famous poets of the 19th century, wrote, "Oh, my love's like a red, red rose." Did he really mean that exactly? Is that literally what he was talking about? Surely there's more to it than those literal statements, right? Because the statement itself is false. Love is not like a red rose. It is unlikely that his lover, the one he loved, was red from the head up to her hair, and below was green and prickly from the neck down, right? So there was something else going on in those famous words, my love is like a red, red rose. It implies a metaphor which goes way beyond the literal statement of the words. And so too, that metaphor has to be weighed and measured and balanced against ordinary things. So when we read Moses' great poem about the Jewish people, by the way, it's not only a beautiful poem, it's also kind of like he's slapping us across the face. There's a lot of scolding that goes on in this poem. He's saying to the Jewish people, you've made a lot of mistakes, too many mistakes, and you need to turn back to God and pay attention to what the Almighty really wants from you. That cannot really be, I would suggest that is not conveyed simply in prose. Poetry contains that indescribable, intangible aspect which makes those truths audible to the human ear. In other words, if you think of your favorite song, your favorite ballad that you memorized 20 or 50 years ago, the words are more than words. They're an echo of eternity. They're an echo of some deeper message that you and I keep in our minds and our hearts, which is why that's why we're able to memorize great songs, because they have such a powerful resonance inside of us. The Zohar puts it this way when it talks about the poetry of the Torah. If one looks upon the Torah as merely a book presenting narratives and everyday stories, alas, such a teaching, we too could have written it. But the Torah, in all of its worlds, holds supernal truths and sublime secrets. Just as wine must be kept in a jar to keep it and to keep it rare, so the Torah must be contained in an outer garment. The garment is made up of tales and stories and narratives, but we, meaning you and I, we are bound to penetrate beyond that garment, to go into the inner clothing, to understand the great poetry and the beauty of the message. So I hope that all of you this coming year will delve into the Torah a little bit more, to get to the core of things, to find a deeper meaning to your own lives, to find a deeper sense of consolation and joy, and even sometimes a sense of sorrow and redemption that we all feel when we go through life. Shabbat Shalom. So let's come back to our prayer book for a moment. We want to think of our friends and our loved ones, family members, all those in need of healing and blessing. Everyone who needs to be uplifted during these holidays. The Misha Berach prayer is on page 371. 371. I want to think of, we remember on this Sabbath, Carmen Orland, friend of our cantors, and Eliodoro Herrera, the father of Cantor Ephraim. And we remember on this Shabbat also Doreen Herdig, Lynn Kelly, John Graham, Melanie Hornstein, Flo Vinnick, Arlene Vinnick, Helen Fine, and Deborah Gallegos. Do you have any other?
Sean Johnson.
Sean Johnson, okay. So join with Alma and Wendy and myself. The words for our song are in the middle of page 371, page 371.
Source of strength, who blessed the ones before.
Set your clocks for the beginning of Yom Kippur. Sunday night services are streaming at 7:30 in the evening, thanks to Lela Dawkins.
And they will be so much better.
The sound will be perfect. And Yom Kippur morning begins at 10 o'clock on the computer and also here in the sanctuary in Beit Tikva. And next Shabbat, don't forget, next Shabbat we will be, before the Sabbath begins, we will have built the sukkah outside and we will celebrate Sukkot here in the sanctuary next Shabbat. There will be no service on the computer. It will be a service in attendance. Everyone's welcome, and we'll be socially distant or distancing, and then we'll go outside and with the lulav and etrog say the blessings for Sukkot. So let's go to our closing prayers. Yes, Torah study this Saturday morning on Zoom, 9:30 Saturday, Shabbat morning. We're on page 586. If you're able, please rise and we'll sing together. Elena was towards the bottom of the page. Let's read this meditation before we come to the Kaddish prayer. We're on 593, top of page 593. In nature's ebb and flow, God's eternal law abides. When tears dim our vision, our grief clouds our understanding, we often lose sight of God's eternal plan. Yet we know that growth and decay, life and death, all reveal a divine purpose. God, who is our support in the struggles of life, is also our hope in death. Set God before us and shall not despair. In God's hands are the souls of all the living and the spirits of all flesh. Under God's protection we abide, and by God's love we are comforted. O life of our life, soul of our soul, cause your light to shine into our hearts. Fill our spirits with abiding trust in you. On this Sabbath, we remember a dear congregant, long-standing congregant, and very wonderful friend of our congregation who has passed away this week, Don Miller. May his memory always be for a blessing. And on this, their yahrzeit memorial with love and devotion, we recall Rose Daneman and Rita Grant, former congregants of our Beit Tikva, Susan Harris, sister-in-law of Sheila Bickle, Michael Hartman, cousin of Sonny Rappaport, Alfred Hornstein, father of Barry Hornstein, Jeffrey Marco, son of Barbara Marco, Kenny Siegel, brother of Ned Siegel, and Anna Tucker Meyerson, mother of Eleanor Brenner. So please, let's turn to the Kaddish prayer, and if you'll turn over to 598, we can all recite the Kaddish together on page 598. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah v'yamad yivrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayedecho Beit Yisrael v'galav zman kariv imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam omei amaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yipahar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shemei Dekudusha B'richu Lela Min Kol Birchata Shirata Tushbechata V'nechamata V'amiran B'Alma V'imru Amen Yehei Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya V'chayim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen Osei Shalom B'Mramav Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to all of us, to the land of Israel, and all our people. We say, Amen. So we conclude our Shabbat service with the Kiddush on page 123 of the works for the Kiddush, the sanctification of the Sabbath day. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei b'riah ha'afem. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu. Shabbat Kashom v'Allah Ratzon Im Hilanu Zikaron L'Maseh Bereshit Kihu Yom Tefillah L'Mikveh Kodesh Zecher L'Tziat Mitzrayim Gibanu Me'atah Shabbat shalom.